1923 is the second Yellowstone origin story after 1883, which showed the first on-screen generation of Duttons making their way to Montana to establish the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch. The patriarch of that family, James, died in 1893 after being shot by a horse thief. This was shown to us in a flashback in the 4th season of Yellowstone. His wife Margaret apparently died a year later, but not before she wrote a letter to James's brother Jacob, asking him to move to Montana to save her family. Jacob obliged, but he was too late to save Margaret. He found her frozen in a snowdrift, and her 2 sons barely made it out alive. Jacob and his wife Cara raised these 2 children as their own. All of this information is revealed to us by James and Margaret's firstborn, Elsa, who died all the way back in 1883 toward the end of the family's journey to Montana. In her voiceover, Elsa talks about how violence has always haunted the Duttons, from the Scottish Highlands to all the way out here to Montana. And this point is made right after we watch Cara kill an injured man who was about to kill her. We lack context for this sequence because it is an event from a future episode. And even when violence doesn't haunt Elsa's family, they seek it. That is the case for her younger brother Spencer, who she never met because he was born after the journey to Montana. We met Spencer in a Yellowstone flashback taking place in 1893. This was Spencer then, and this is him now. He's a hunter whose apathy is rooted in his scarring experience during World War I. Spencer is similar to his father James in that regard because James was a Civil War veteran who also had bad memories of warfare. He never talked about it. Elsa goes on to mention that only one of James's children lived to see their own children grow up, and that lucky fella is John. This was him in 1883, skip 10 years and he's all grown up, and in 1923 he is running the ranch with his uncle Jacob. John is married to Emma, and they have a son named Jack, who is also involved in the family business. Elsa concludes her introduction by saying that Jacob made the ranch into an empire, and then the empire crumbled. That is when 1923 kicks off. Jacob is in Bozeman to attend a town hall meeting with John and Sheriff William McDowell. We soon learn that a cattle rancher has killed some sheep grazing on land that was leased to him, and so the leader of the sheep herders doesn't want this to go unanswered. But why is Jacob conducting this meeting? Well, he's the head of the Montana Livestock Association, which is a fictional law enforcement agency whose purview is obviously livestock. Even though this agency doesn't exist in Montana, it is based on the real-world Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association. Coming back to Banner, he is Scottish and he uses an Irish slur to insult the cattle rancher that shot the sheep. Banner thinks there should be consequences, but Jacob is largely indifferent because he points out the fact that the sheep have ruined the grass and so the cattle rancher's animals will die too. It's not going to be from a bullet, but from starvation because there's no grass anymore. Jacob decides there won't be any more grazing on the valley until it rains. So far it's been a dry summer. He tells Banner he should have leased more land for grazing, and when Banner points out that Jacob has a whole mountain range to himself while everyone else fights for every blade of grass down here, Jacob responds by saying, quote, "I have what my family fought for. You wanna fight me for it too? I didn't think so." End quote. Banner wants to continue this heated discussion outside because going up the mountains isn't a realistic solution for him. Bears would just eat his animals, and he makes a big mistake by grabbing Jacob. So John holds Banner and Jacob holds a gun to Banner's throat. The sheriff gets there just in time and warns Banner that Jacob is an agent of the state. So Banner should be careful going forward if he doesn't want to spend a month in jail. Jacob leaves after saying that stealing a man's grass is like stealing his steers, and he warns Banner that if he grazes another man's lease again, he will have Banner's whole flock. Banner makes fun of the term stealing grass. He is sort of in disbelief. He says man doesn't own the grass, the mountains do, and God does. Quote, "And you're no God, Jacob Dutton. You're no God." End quote. Jacob then attends the Livestock Association meeting where we learn about all of the challenges they're facing. Firstly, there's drought, and that problem is made worse by locusts. They destroy the grass and livestock cannot get fed. Secondly, prices are going down because men have returned from the war and their families are now mostly eating their own beef. They don't need to buy it. Jacob's plan is to push all the herds together, take them up the mountains, and protect them from wolves and bears until the fall. That will require the help of a lot of cowboys, but the alternative is worse. There's no grass down here, and the livestock would just die of starvation. So the Dutton land up in the mountains will be able to feed the herd. There is one problem with that. Before the Duttons and other ranchers embark on this 2-week-long journey, Banner and his fellow sheepherders cross into the Dutton land by cutting the fence wires. The Duttons and all the other ranchers start to drive, and Jack discovers the sheep, so a herder takes aim and shoots at him. That is the main plot line of the premiere, and it was able to pique my interest because not only are the Duttons fighting rough natural conditions, but they're also up against desperate people who think that these conditions permit them to circumvent rules that are there for a reason. You can certainly sympathize with the plight of Banner and herders like him, but that doesn't give him the right to prioritize his own livestock over others who've actually paid money to lease land. Those rules are there for a reason, and because Banner broke them, a range war is about to kick off. His shenanigans will not end well for him because he's playing games with other people's livelihoods. Time to rewind a little bit and talk about Jack's personal life. He is supposed to get married in less than a week, but the ride up the mountain means he won't be back in time. When his fiancée Elizabeth finds out that the wedding is getting delayed because the cattle drive cannot wait, she tells him to go and do the deed with a cow up in the mountains. Cara knew that Jack wouldn't be able to handle this situation, so she arrives soon afterward to patch things up, and she explains to Elizabeth how things work around here. Elizabeth's father Bob owns the neighboring Strafford Ranch, but she's been away from home for a while to study. Cara says that if Elizabeth truly wants to spend her life with Jack, she's gonna have to get used to stuff like this because it's just the beginning. The herd always comes first. This way of life isn't easy, but the plus side is the freedom it brings, the kind that most people don't even know about. Elizabeth says that Jack makes her dizzy when she's with him, and she can't breathe without him, so she will learn this life and embrace it to be with him. Cara brings Elizabeth back to Jack, and as they kiss, Bob watches from afar with Jacob. In the meantime, Jack's uncle Spencer is busy in Africa. He starts off by tracking down and killing a specific lion. He then travels by train to Nairobi, Kenya to kill a leopard that is causing some trouble at a campsite. There's a flashback in here showing Spencer during the Great War. His leg is broken and he can't retreat with his fellow soldiers. We see him kill a whole lot of enemies, and he eventually wakes up on the train and pulls a gun on a porter, which is a reaction caused by his nightmare. Spencer and his two fellow hunters arrive at the camp. These two serve as bait while Spencer waits outside the tent with his rifle. However, we soon find out that there are actually two leopards, and one of them eats a British woman Spencer met earlier in the day. Spencer shoots the leopard, but he is not able to save her. He relaxes for a second thinking that the job is done, but no, his friends shout that there's a second one, and that one jumps at Spencer. We don't see what happens to him, but I'm guessing he survives. For me, this was the most enjoyable part of the premiere. Spencer's PTSD has made him so obviously disillusioned that he can't go back home. He probably drowns out his war memories by hunting animals in Africa. He constantly puts himself in the middle of wildly dangerous situations, because what else is there to do after tasting the feeling of avoiding death and surviving? He continues to chase that high, and his mind cannot fathom living a normal life back in Montana. Cara keeps writing letters to him from time to time, wondering why he's not coming back, and she assumes that it's because Spencer's seeking the part of himself that he lost during the war. We also pay a visit to a government boarding school for Indians. Missionaries were sent to reservations to set up these sorts of schools to assimilate Native Americans into society, and you know how these things go. Abuse, violence, the whole shebang. It's horrible, and we watch this through Teonna Rainwater's perspective. She is presumably an ancestor of Tom's from Yellowstone. Sister Mary keeps hitting Tiana's hands until she has enough and strikes back. She beats the living crap out of Sister Mary, and they're both taken to the headmaster's room. Father Renaud lashes out and punishes Sister Mary for her lack of compassion. He then turns his attention to Teonna and starts whipping her. He says he has compassion, but no mercy. We see the damage when the students take a bath. Teonna is badly injured. Teonna and Sister Mary agree that they should try to avoid going to Father Renault's room from now on. And as Teonna speaks to her friend that night, she figures that all of their friends and family that have left this school must not have survived because they didn't write letters to Teonna even though they promised to. She doesn't think they made it out, and she's not sure she will be able to. Well, that was a decent premiere. Good mix of subjects and characters and some great acting. We've got hunting action in Africa, a peek into the city of Bozeman, some classic ranching storylines, romance, and a harsh look at life in boarding schools. 1923 is almost definitely gonna avoid being monotonous, and it's a good accomplishment to assure your viewers of that from the beginning. You're gonna laugh 1 minute, like I did during Jack and Elizabeth's scene, and then you're gonna feel horrible watching Teonna. Then you're gonna watch Spencer hunting a leopard. In my opinion, that mix of emotions will set this show apart. I don't think I need to talk about all the basic stuff, like the costume and set design, because Taylor Sheridan has established how capable he is in terms of production value, so I think the story had a promising start and the look and the feel of the show was simply great. I also like the fact that the score is similar, or in some cases the same as it was in 1883. That helps to make this feel like a sequel. And lastly, my only qualm is the fact that John looks like he's gonna take a backseat. He doesn't seem that interesting of a character. I was expecting a more menacing John. After all, he is James's son, and the Dutton legacy continued thanks to him. But anyway, let's wait and see how he does going forward. For now, tell me your thoughts on the premiere of 1923. Like this video if you've enjoyed this breakdown, and subscribe for more movie reviews and TV show breakdown. That is it for now, take care and see you in the next video.